go, right there. That looks good. Hi, Greg. See you on there early with us. Good to see you. Christine, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. Hi, Lynn. There he is. The man, the myth. Hi, Dan.
All right.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Go. I can hear you now. Yes, sir. Helps if I turn up my volume. How are you?
I can't hear you.
You're not hearing me? How about now? Mic check, mic check. 1, 2.
There we go. All right.
Awesome. How are you, my friend?
Good, real good. Just finished working out, and
me too.
my street's getting torn up for new water lines. So I have no water. So.
You sure that's water, or is that from you doing all your carries out there?
Yeah, from the carry.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they're all silly, They're all
Absolutely, that's part of the process here. Is you can't laugh at yourself, right?
Well, I tell you, there's a lot of people in the industry with me who cannot laugh at themselves. They're Trumpian in their inability to poke fun at themselves. Yes. Hold on a sec. Good. Okay, everybody's off. Good.
Good. That's a good point. I should do that too. Well, we really appreciate you coming on, Dan. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
For this, I know you're busy, and I'm excited to hear about Dan John University. I'll give you a chance to chat about that at the end.
I mean, I don't want to come up too much as a shill, but yeah, I think it's. Oh, where are you? Sorry, I'm trying to get everything down so I don't. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't want to come off as a shill, but I'm pretty proud of it. It's amazing, really. I mean,
yeah. Your body of work, everything that you've done too, is fantastic. I mean, where I have and we'll talk about this here in a minute, because I like to kind of share stories about how I got introduced to you. But coming from the world of a thrower, you're a name that we all grew up with, and knowing that you were local, John Powell went to school at American River College, so we all kind of knew that name around here. Mac Wilkins in Oregon, so we all kind of knew that name. Like this, it was kind of a regional thing. And you were still, as I was kind of getting into Sac State and throwing at higher caliber events, you were still throwing into the master's programs. And I even saw you lift. Yeah, I saw you lift a few times in USA weightlifting. So I mean, it was pretty cool to see one of the guys that when you're kind of growing up, you're reading about in the books and you're hearing about. And this is internet wasn't really all that prevalent yet. I mean, you're a name that we saw on the ring, about post and a throw. Yeah. And so I didn't even know, like a lot of us didn't even know what you looked like, and then we'd be at an event and you'd hear Dan John, and then you'd say, oh, he's throwing with Carl Banks. And we're like, what? Carl Banks? Like, it was really cool. We'd be at Mount Sac and we'd hear names and all this. And just, it's one of those hero kind of things that you get to experience, and then seeing you at events and such. So I don't want to ruin my intro for you, but we got another minute here. We'll kind of talk about that background a little bit.
And now, will people be live asking questions?
Oh yeah. Well, they'll be able to. As a panelist, you'll be able to see them. We can answer them live as we go. This is totally what you want to do. I don't mind saving them till the end and then kind of picking through as we go. That way we're not interrupted. As if you're off on, I want to, I love the stories and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to interrupt any of that. So, as we get rolling there. So let's go ahead and get going. 10:30. I'm excited to have 45 minutes or an hour with you. I really appreciate you being here. And as I was kind of saying earlier, as a thrower, we do have hero worship. I think every sport does. If you grew up in the 80s and in the 90s, you were worshiping Michael Jordan. And so we have those names in the world of throwing that you hear about. And Dan John was one of those names for us. He was a collegiate champion, and he was a great thrower in college and a great thrower post and into the master's program. And then as I kind of worked into the world of personal training and being a strength coach, then seeing him at events and speaking and sharing his stories, there's been a lot of growth of your profession and my personal experiences that are very similar. And it's just been something that I've connected with you on. And so my story that I like to tell is one of your shark habits. I'll let you kind of talk about that here too. But I was training with a buddy of mine at our gym. He had just come over to see our gym. We just opened. We did our workout and we were getting ready to leave. And I was like, oh, see you. I gave him a hug, and we get in the car and we drive up, and we're both at the light, and I'm turning right and he's turning left. And he looks over at me, and I have my flosser out, and I'm flossing my teeth. And he looks at me, and he's got a flosser out, and he's flossing his teeth. And I roll down my window, and I go, "Shark habit?" And he goes, "Shark habit." And I was like, "I knew it." Who else drives around doing so? In one of your books, I don't remember exactly which one it was, but you talk about a shark habit, and like one of the best things you've ever done for your dental care was put a bag of those flossers in your car. And that stuck with me. It's been one of those things that I've always had, as kind of one of my habits of, we're going to do, it's just one of those things that stuck in my head. And
can I flip that just real quick?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So one of the things I tell personal trainers to do is when you first meet a new client, you shake their hand and you walk out to their car with them and you look in their back seat and you'll learn everything you need to know about the client you're going to have. If it's filled with fast food bags, all the burpees in the world aren't going to undo all that fast food. And a good idea for people, now maybe not now. We're during this, you're all live, so they all know what the pandemic. But generally, the condition of someone's back seat, glove box, general car tells you more about the person than what they fill out on that form and what they say about their goals. So one of my things is literally go out there, literally, correctly said.
Yep.
And bring a garbage bag and help them clean their car and organize, and maybe have a basket to a box and say, okay, this is stuff that shouldn't be in your car. There's no reason to have evening pumps in the back of your car anymore, Robert. I don't question your weekends, but still. And throw the garbage out, fill a box with stuff that shouldn't be in the car, and then give them that bag of floss sticks, put it there, and because you are the sum of your habits. Literally, where you're sitting right now is who you habited yourself to be. And so sometimes for people, you just need a little bit of a jump start to get them going. And I think it sounds crazy, like you're a lunatic when you tell people that, but I have never had a personal trainer who's done that say, "Oh my God, eye-opening."
It gives you some insight right away, huh?
Yes.
I like that.
I continue. I didn't mean to step.
No, I love it. This is my favorite part of you. So this is another little story that I have is I have all your books, and I have the actual hard copies. I'm looking at my stack of them here. I have all of them. But I also got them on audio because you read them, and it's not really, it's not really like reading or listening to any other book, because you're just basically telling your story. And it's so fun. Like if you ever had that teacher in grade school that did the voices and all that kind of stuff, like it's great to hear your story from your point of view, more than Morgan Freeman could read it to us, right? Like it's really entertaining. So
I've had feedback on all where they can actually hear how emotional I get talking about coaching my folks and stuff. And, and it's hard. It's harder than you think. Larry and I have this idea of selling the unedited tapes because I guess I swear so much when I make a mistake. It's hilarious.
The outtakes.
It's so frustrating. But she's a wonder to work with. But let's continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean
Sure. Yeah. So I think it's 40 Years of the Whistle. You have a line in there, and I wrote you a message about this. I was on my way to have a surgery. I was having my third surgery on my wrist. I was very frustrated, very depressed. And I just thought, am I ever going to get back to training like I trained? And one of the lines that you had in this book is, for the chronically overtrained, undertraining feels wrong, but it's right. And that was something that clicked in my head of like, I don't have to be that overtrained athlete anymore. That's what ended me up being here. I need to train smarter, more efficiently. And instantly I had this pick me up. I remember coming home and telling my wife, I heard what I needed to hear today. I'm ready for the surgery. Like it was one of those moments. It was an emotional moment for me. It was something that connected. I've always found inspiration for programming from your books, for storytelling, for all of that. But this was the first time that it really, something got me on a deeper kind of philosophical level to get my mind right for something that I was about to do. And I don't know if, obviously maybe that wasn't the intention of the comment, more along the program design component, but I just want you to know that there are many of us, especially on here live, that are very big fans of your content that you put out. You've had major influences on my programming and what I teach people and what I do with TOA, along with many others. And it's just a huge honor to have you on here with us and to spend some time. So
you sold me. You got me. Okay. You got me.
yeah,
Okay?
I really appreciate it. So without further ado, if there is anybody on here that doesn't know who you are, would you please just in a minute or two, just kind of give us a little quick intro to Dan, just a quick little blip. I'm sure everybody knows, but just a quick little, and then I'd love to kind of have you talk about your 5 pillars of strength.
Sure.
And then we'll.
Yeah, it's interesting about this because I was on Instagram the other day and somebody said, I got great respect for @Coach Dan John. He's not as qualified as many. He has no initials behind his name. And I thought, what?
Ouch.
I'm not qualified. I thought. But it was funny to read it. I think it was meant as a compliment, but yeah. So I'm one of the few strength coaches that's a Fulbright scholar, and I think that's unusual in our field. I have multiple master's degrees. I grew up in South San Francisco, youngest of 6, military family, a very, very athletic family. I wanted to play American football, but when track season came around, I started throwing the discus because my football hero threw the discus in high school. And very quickly it became evident that just like weightlifting, I started lifting weights in 65, but the discus and weightlifting I liked because what you put into it, you get better. And now maybe, when I was throwing 61 feet with the discus, but when I got up to 62 feet, I had thrown a foot farther. And then I learned how to turn. I got up to 82 feet and then 103 and then 170 and then, boom. And and I look back, I've always enjoyed things in my life that if you put your time and your enthusiasm and your energy, you get better. So I wasn't really big enough coming out of high school to be a collegiate athlete. That's when I met Dick Notmeyer, and I went from weighing 162 pounds to 202 in 4 months, which is stunning improvement. And I went to Skyline Junior College. I became the state champ there. And then my goal in the 9th grade was go to Utah State. And Coach Mon called me up my sophomore year and said, "Nice. I'd like to offer you a full ride." And I went to Utah State. My junior year, I got hit in the head with the discus, and it should have killed me, but it caused a massive, massive concussion. My professors, I came back, they asked me to, at graduation a few years ago, HAS, Humanities, Arts, and Social Studies, asked me to be the alumni speaker. And my wife was sitting next to one of my professors, and she said, and the professor just kind of turned and said, "Do you know how bad Danny was?" And Tiff goes, "Well, I heard he was a good student." He goes, "Oh, no, I meant with the concussion." And I guess the professors were all like, "This is bad." I couldn't remember.
Did you get hit on the fly or on the bounce?
Fly.
In the back of the head? Side of the head? Oh, shit. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so, and there's a lot more stories behind that, but so I had a real rough 6 months or so. And then, but it was nice because as we were talking about overtraining a minute ago, I couldn't overtrain for the first time in 7 years. And when I started training, it was like, God, so I just decided I hated the back squat. So I decided I'd read somewhere that Vasily said you only need to squat 20 pounds more than you clean and jerk. So I was figuring, well, I can clean 365, so I'm not squatting heavier than 385. So my workouts were so short, I would snatch in the mid-high 2s, clean the mid-high 3s, do 1 or 2 sets of squats and say, screw that. And all of a sudden, my throws just start blowing. I am throwing so far, so effortlessly. It's like, So, and then that year, my senior, Coach Mon asked me to come back because he didn't like this bodybuilding thing that the guys were now doing in the weight room. He was one of the earlier proponents of weightlifting, very early, but he didn't like the Arnold stuff that had shown up in the past 3 years. So he hired me. I might have been the first track and field strength coach. Maybe. I mean, somebody's going to say they were there sooner. As always, somebody says they invented the goblet squat. And somebody said somebody else invented the slosh bike. But it's always after I publish an article on it that they invented. So and after that, I started teaching high school, but I always remained a strength coach. I would teach Western Civ, sacred scripture, economics. football, wrestling, track and field, but I'd always was the strength coach. And I helped a lot of faculty members. Sometimes I just really just wanted to work with the young female faculty members, but that never worked out as well as I hoped. In a few cases. But what was good in hindsight, so I worked with Utah State athletes. Then I worked with high school athletes. Then I worked with high school teachers, spouses of high school teachers, somebody's friend's cousin who was in town. And I look back now on that period of the mid 80s. And after that, I worked for the Upper Limit, which was even more diverse, lots of athletes, but lots of normal people. But I look back on that, and that was really when I became a better coach, because I thought you just need to do the Olympic lifts and that answers all the questions. But because that's what happens is, the joke is, if all you have is a hammer, the world's a nail.
Yep.
That was my hammer. So in hindsight, the volunteering in the mid 80s, working with real diverse people with real diverse schedules, and just really helped me as a strength coach, because it opened my eyes about working with, like, Robert, if you come work with me, we're going to work with you. We're going to work with the old you, and we're going to work with the future you. Mm-hmm. I'm very concerned about how you're going to feel in 10 years. What? Well, I wouldn't have done that if I'd have just stayed in coaching, because the truth is, this sounds horrible, but can you go is literally what you ask an athlete is. And God, if you say no, honest to God, I'm going to turn my head and I'm going to find your backup. It sounds horrible, listeners, but that's the reality of sports. I hope you don't have any physical therapists, but those guys drive me crazy. Shit, you got 25 seconds to get a call in a football game, right? And I'll say, hey, can Robert play? Well, what we're looking at here is we think that it's arculating across the labrum, the greater formosus is, I think there's tricky. I've noticed a bit of amnesia and delay a game. Can he play or not?
Yes or no?
Oh, he's fine. Well, for God's sakes, just say it, so that's a hard lesson to learn. So that's kind of and then
we're exposed to a good variety of people from an early,
that's the best. Dick Nahmeyer, Ralph Maughan, Bob Lahati. And what really helped me is I was at work one day and this guy showed me this thing called the internet. And I thought it was the stupidest thing I ever saw. I really did. But I went online and I found Clarence Bass's site, cbass.com, still there. And he had an email up there that had his email address and Rob Wolf's email address.
Yeah.
My first email was to Clarence Bass. My second one was to Rob Wolf. And I talked to Rob about paleo, and I talked to Clarence about the Atkins diet.
That's cool.
And then I met a guy named Tamir Katz, who was an early paleo guy. He's now a doctor, Dr. Katz. And he said, you got to start a website. And I go, or whatever it was called. It wasn't even a website. Uh-huh. And so I started taking and combining my things. And I had 250,000 hits, I think in 98 or 99.
Oh, wow.
And sadly, the place is gone. All that stuff is gone. We'll never find it again. It's, there was no library at that time. But I wasn't famous at all. Can I keep going?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the key event is about 2002, 2003, Charles Staley used to have this thing called a boot camp. It was an early seminar. And one of his speakers dropped out the week of, and two of my athletes were trained down there. And Mike Bukowski said to Charles, hell, have Dan John speak. He can fill an hour. And Charles Staley said, who the hell's Dan John? And then I spoke, and Chris Schugert from T-Nation was there, and he wrote his review. If Dan John ever speaks anywhere, go see him. And the very next workshop, I was the keynote for 1,200 people in the audience.
Wow.
So I went from 15 people to 1,200 in two talks.
Yeah, you got a good endorsement there. That's cool.
Yeah. And it just blew up, man. It just blew up, Oh, and the funny thing, though, it's like I tell people who are trying to start online education in 2020. It's not what you're doing now, it's what you did. So, when the opportunity came, Charles Staley needed a speaker. I was prepared. You know, I'd been a classroom teacher, a lecturer. I taught on TV. I knew the weight room. I knew the problems in the weight room, and I was able to, you know, go. And so, if I have any advice, you know, when the opportunity hits, I sure hope you're ready. Yeah. So sorry, that was way too much. I'm sorry.
No problem. I got a couple. So first thing, it's funny you were talking about you remembering your first email. Mine was to Glenn Thompson, I think his name.
Sure. Long and strong. Yeah.
I wanted all the journals. That was my first email ever, was to him to say, hey, I want all the back issues. Because I really wanted the one with Lance Deal on the cover, because I was going to see him at the 99 PA championships here in Stanford.
Yeah.
So I emailed, and he sent me this packet of them in the mail, and it was like $100. It was amazing, and that was my first email. I never forget that.
That was such a good magazine. Oh,
yeah, really good, man. It was just all dedicated to us. So it was like every page, I read every single word of it.
Yeah.
Question: you talked about your pro athlete hero that was playing football, but also threw. Who was that? Was it Christian Okoye or Michael?
No. Oh, child, please, child. It's from the book 7 Days to Sunday. It's about the 1967 New York Giants. On Wednesday, Kenny Avery is discussed. Okay. Now, it's interesting because, in fact, it's right here. Shoot, couldn't have done this better. So another one of my heroes, good friend of mine now, Rocky Blyer's book, he signed it, okay? In this book, he talks about blocking Kenny Avery. So my two heroes hit each other. There.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's Kenny Avery. He played for Southern Miss. Mm-hmm. And I'm very proud to pick him as a hero, because at the Bengals' 50th anniversary of being a team, he ended up with the Bengals. The article that came out that day was about Kenny Avery being the first white football player to have an African-American roommate. And considering he was from Southern Miss, it was one of those things that 50 years, and we're talking about, my wife made it to the thing. She was right next to him, I guess. But you pick a hero in 1971, and you find out 47 years later, 50 years later, that the guy's the guy. You know what I'm saying? He's a stand-up dude, and that, because it's real easy to be racist and sexist and hateful when it's the easiest thing to do. It's hard when it's the hard thing to do. Yeah.
That's cool.
It's hard to be on the right side of history sometimes. Yeah. And he was. So there you go.
That's awesome. I'm going to check that out. I haven't heard of him before, so I'll definitely look at that. And
I'm sure I quote it to death in my books. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
And then just on a personal request, how far did you throw in high school with all your implements? And then how far did you throw in college?
Yeah, I threw at 162 pounds in high school. I threw 170 feet 9 inches.
Nice.
And the shot, I think I was barely over 40. I wasn't.
Okay. So decent discus, not great in the shot.
But I was also a high hurler and a low hurler.
Okay. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So it's weird. I had a streak my senior year where I placed in every meet in the hurdles. I'd win the discus by 20, 30 feet.
Yeah.
And place in the hurdles. It was kind of cool. Now, sometimes because there's only 3 hurlers, but it doesn't matter. I was at a meet one time, and between rounds, I look over at the it used to be called the 180 lows, and 180-yard low hurdles. And I'm between rounds, and there's only 2 people in the race, and this is a good track team we're going against. Well, I jumped in. Those other 2 beat me. John Montoya won. I know that, and the other guy. But I got my 1 point, and we only won by a little bit. But my 1 point made a difference. I just remember that. And then I came back to the discus. And then in college, I threw 190 feet 6 inches. When I threw that, I think I weighed 218, 226 in that range.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I was actually a real good thrower, about 231. Mm-hmm. I went to a place in Colorado Springs. I'm not going to mention it, but they've got 5 rings. And they told me to get my squat, my body weight up. And I did. It really hurt me as a thrower for probably a decade. Yeah. And then back in when you might have seen me throw 2004,
Right,
So when
right.
I was 47, I threw 55 meters in 1 year, I think in 6 meets,
Nice.
180 and above in six
Yeah.
meets at 47
Yeah.
with the
Oh,
real discus.
that's
Yeah.
great.
And the reason is because um, I was doing easy strength and loaded carries and
Mhm.
training 15 minutes in the weight room versus my competitors 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wish I would have known some things like that. I definitely threw better later in my career because I didn't overtrain as much. But yeah, when you talk about the weight mass too, I threw 212 in the hammer, 65 meters, and I did that at 235. The year before, I threw 61 meters at like 260. I was just too heavy, but I was in that mindset of like I've got to be bigger and heavier to hang with these guys, and I moved better, more efficiently. I felt better, lighter. So I hear you there.
Isn't the first time we ever, didn't you share something with me on hammer throwing the first time we ever met? I swear.
I did
I've,
an interview with Harold Conley, and I remember sending that out to a couple of different people. I interviewed him for my senior project, and we did like a biomechanic breakdown too that I had in the hammer. And I think I wrote a program once on strength training for hammer throwers. That might have been something that I tried to share with you too. I wanted somebody to see it that knew what I was talking about, and that
yeah.
wasn't in my circle that just said, yeah, Rob, that's great. Someone that would give it a good look at it.
Oh, no. When my daughter went to, I won't mention the University of Utah, and her training programs, I'd get them and be like, Dad, what do you think? It's like, there's 300 exercises a week listed just to learn how to do, how many adaptions, there were 65 shoulder workouts. I mean, it was,
How many menus are we going to go through here?
yeah, Dad, what should I do? Snatch, clean, squat,
Yeah.
front squat, carry
Well,
shit. Yeah.
let's dive into some of your stuff here, because I know I could just sit here and talk throwing with you all day. I don't know how entertaining that would be for everyone else, but you guys got to understand, this is one of my heroes here. I wanted to talk shop with him a little bit. So your 5 pillars. Tell me about your 5 pillars.
The 5 fundamental human movements.
Yes, sir. Yes, and then your 6th, the mysterious 6th. So let's dive into that.
First, the hardest thing that every strength coach learns is that, and I always tell people, you're sitting on a gold mine. It's glutes, glutes, glutes. It's buns, buns, buns. And what happens with most American athletes is they get so upper body focused. So I broke it down to 2 upper body things. Push, which is, separation from the environment. So push is getting away from your environment. The environment can be the other athlete, it can be the floor, it can be whatever. Pull is embracing the environment, getting the environment closer to you. Okay? Someone's going to raise their hand and say, well, what about horizontal and vertical? And I'll say, really? Your athletes need more upper body work. That's what's holding American athletes back is, I had one of my guys, I'm not going to mention the team because I can't. Because it's funny though. And I gave him this assignment. I want you to count up the number of variations you have in the push. Gets back to me, and this is not exaggeration. I think it was like 34. And I go, how many variations do you have in the squat? And he goes, well, we got half squat and we got box squat. Okay, neither is actually a squat, but I'm okay with it. And I go, can you see the problem?
Yeah.
And he goes, you know what? He said it was great. I won't mention his name, but he goes, I know it, but I had to go through it. I got a buddy down over here. He has a Super Bowl ring, and he will, God bless him, every time. I talk about it in my books. He'll program a thing for one of his people, 130 presses in a week, 25 pulls, 15 squats. I say, no, push, pull, squat have to be the exact same number. And he'll go, but what about right? Have your typical client do 137 squats and see how long you have them as a client. They'd all quit. That's right. So push, pull. Right. Then there's something we call the squat, which I think is one thing, and many people think is something else. I think the squat is, so you're not on your legs, you're slung between your legs. And to me, squatting is sliding your body between your legs. Okay? You've got to maintain the squat. How many did I do today? So I probably did about 50 squats today in my overhead squats and back squats as part of my complex. it wasn't a squatting day. That was just one of the movements I was doing. They weren't heavy at all, but the movement of squatting is paramount. Load is secondary. And then there's this thing called the hinge, which is the most powerful thing the human body can do. That's what a standing long jump is. So a standing long jump, and you'll notice naturally you'll stick your butt back when you stand in the long jump. And you'll notice naturally you don't really go crazy on how much you use your knees. Hinges are kettlebell swings, kettlebell snatches. Olympic bar would be the snatch, the clean, deadlift variations done correctly. And then number 5 is loaded carries, which sadly I discovered too late in my career, though we did do sled pulls, but those are anything you pick up for time or distance. Bear hug carries, farmer bars, rucking, heavy backpacks. I include dragging sled, prowlers, pushing cars. Somebody says, oh, you call them loaded gait, G-A-I-T. And I'm like, yeah, because no one would ever figure out what I meant by loaded carries because, you're carrying it. Milo or Milo, that's how he trained. And if it's good enough for Milo or Milo, it's good enough for my athletes.
I agree.
And then you asked about the 6 movement, okay? The 6 movement, everything else.
Everything else.
Basically, though, now I try to get people to think this way: groundwork or brachiating. So monkey bars, brachiating, monkey bars, rope climbing, simply hanging from a bar, bent arm hanging, anything that you do, any kind of climbing would be very good for any athlete. Climbing vertical is crawling horizontally. And then groundwork can be crawling, rolling, parts of the Turkish get up, just getting up and down off the ground. In fact, just let me emphasize that. Just getting up and down off the ground will do more for your heart rate than 99% of the nonsense I see. So someone's going to raise their hand and say, what about this movement? That's a 6 movement. What about that? That's a 6 movement. I have never had an athlete say, coach, the difference this year was the lunges, or the difference this year was heavy Turkish get-ups. No. So there's a whole bunch of things that when you're coaching track and field, as a track guy, you should get this. If it works in track and field, the implement goes farther. The guy goes faster, higher. She jumps longer. You're right. I'm right. Why? Because they improved on the field. And if they don't, I'm wrong. I mean, I hate to be so, zero sum, but it's true.
Try with it, yeah, it's true.
I mean, if you decide to rotate in the shot put and it goes farther, well, we're going to stick with it. Everyone thought the Fosbury. Remember, the Brits proved that the flop did not work. Go to a track meet and find someone doing the British style. Good luck on that.
Yeah.
The Brits also proved that the wide leg and the discus had no value. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's the only way it's done. Yeah.
The Utah State technique, Robert, is the only way it's done. You're welcome. We invented that technique.
Nice.
We did.
When we started, you talked about the impression of bodybuilding and Arnold's kind of encyclopedia bodybuilding, how that had really integrated big in the late 70s, early 80s. So as I was growing up, that was the style of training that I was introduced.
That's what it was, yeah.
You had your muscle groups and your upper body day or lower, or your pushes and your pulls, etc. So as I kind of got introduced more to your content that you were teaching, I had a back injury and a hip injury. And so I kind of went away from all my muscle groups and I started to implement more of these movement patterns, components rather than it's chest day. And I saw great improvements. I was rehabilitating from a back surgery and getting ready to climb Mount Rainier. I was taking a group of clients and such, and it was just kind of a new endeavor for us. And I really moved away from that and started to truly embrace a lot of your practices and some of your philosophies, and it just opened my mind to that. We were so stuck in this, chest and tricep Mondays, and you did legs on Wednesday, and we were just ingrained in that. We didn't really think outside of that as a different philosophy. So
for me, Robert, when you tell me that, I'm like, that's insane. That's how a bodybuilder trains.
That's how I think of it now too. I'm like, how did we not, why were we, but it was the only way, and everyone was doing that. So even moms that would come in and be like, I got to lose 30 pounds. And I'm like, we're doing chest and triceps today. Like, it was probably not ideal for what I was trying to teach them to do or what their goals were. But
it still can work.
Yeah.
But if you do that with a track and field athlete, you'll have a collection of parts.
Yeah. And like I was telling Lou Schuler, between Lou and Alan's book and then your content and some of the corrective stuff that I got from Gray Cook, like there was this time from 2002 to like 2006 where it really started to like put things together and just be like, there's a whole new way of training here that I've just totally been oblivious to. And it was just a huge influence on what we have today. Your work in particular is probably most reflected in what I teach and coach, and it's with all these people that are 65 and up, so that's a big part of this for me, is like being able to teach and educate people through our educational components, not dependent on what their biological aging is, but as you talk about often, it's chronological. We want to kind of, or excuse me, not about based on their chronological aging, but their biology, their body of what they are now, not necessarily the number that.
Satchel Paige, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you were?
Exactly.
We had a conversation with neighbors about that last night, because I'm very close to their age, and I'm 63, but when you see me work out, I don't look 63, because first off, I can't believe I just said I'm 63, but because you never think that, but my grip strength is high. I have a good handle on my lean body mass. I floss my teeth, I do all those tiny things. I just did a workshop. It'll be out this week on my YouTube, where I talk about Arthur Devaney, Phil Maffetone, and Irving Dardick, the three people who, when I was they seemed so against what I was listening to, that these are three people that, and by the way, this isn't for athletes, this is for everybody else, okay? These were the first three people who were speaking to the normal population the way I saw things. And I start off by talking about, Arnold and, pumping iron, I'm coming with the woman, I'm coming in the weight room, I'm coming all the time, and then, you got Jane Fonda with the VHS. By the way, Beta was a far better system, but, she did VHS, and that's why you have them today. Still, go for the burn, fire hydrants, feel the burn. The burn is burning fat. And the influence of Arnold, the influence of Conan the Barbarian, and Jane Fonda, you cannot, when you look back, you almost can't unsee it. But a whole generation thought that was norm. And don't forget, up until about 73, if you weightlifted, people thought you were some kind of freak, something wrong with you.
Very small subculture at the time of people.
I got a singlet for Christmas one time, and I don't want to, my family was flat out, can I swear on this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolute assholes about it.
It's a cute little outfit you got there.
And everybody wonders why I went to Utah State over Stanford and some other places. And it was like, I love my family. I do dearly. Yesterday was my brother's birthday. And he just died back in June. And I had a bit of a rough day. And I really cared for him. And but then I thought about a few things. And like, that's right. That's why I went to Utah State, to get away from that kind of thing. But, when I went to Utah State, there was nobody in the weight rooms. We had 3 Olympic bars. I worked out with a couple of guys who later played in the NFL, and that was it. That was our gym. It was, me and a couple of sweaty guys, and and then Arnold, the educational bodybuilder, came out, and every frat boy at Utah State University was on Arnold's advanced plan with all the of course, it was interesting watching them squat because they had the bar on their back, but after that, I don't know what they did. That's what is that?
A lot of guys. Well, Wednesday was not a highly attended day.
yes, everyone was.
Yeah.
But you're right. It was a transformation. I was in the middle of what we would now call a paradigm shift. Mm-hmm. And if you're saying that I'm part of the paradigm shift where we are now, I guess. Oh, thank you. That's high place.
Yes, and with that, you kind of outline your movement patterns, your components, and then in your books too, a couple of them, you kind of go right into your assessment plan, your 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And knowing like your philosophy of what you're going to do with people. Now you got to kind of collect the data on what you're working with, and then how you're going to.
Can I give you a 5-minute quick overview?
Absolutely, please.
Okay. 1, can they stand on 1 foot for 10 seconds? If they can't, medical doctor, we got something wrong. I have some stories in the books about how it's happening. Here's the thing. If we send them to the medical doctor and there's nothing wrong, isn't that good too?
Mm-hmm.
And if we find something early, isn't that good too? So that's one. Then two is two measurements. If somebody weighs over 300 pounds, I have been consulted that you send them to an eye doctor, a dentist, and a medical doctor before you should work with them. And it's funny because someone's going to raise their hand and say, what if they're 299? Well, statistically, 299 is fine. But until they hit 300, then it's not fine. And one of the things that's important is the dentist. It's very, when you look at these shows like, and I won't even mention them, but the show, the loser shows.
Yeah.
Very often, if you need a crown fixed and you've got 7 cavities, and I recommend crunchy vegetables, you literally can't eat them. So that's measurement 1 of 2. Number 2 is we measure their height in relationship to their waistline.
Gotcha. The
waistline should be half the height or less, male or female. Now, this is the very first thing. If they fail that test, their waistline is over half, they are a body composition client, no matter what they said to you. I am proud to say that I think I'm no longer a 3. In our language, it's a 3. I don't think I'm a 3 anymore. I was going to measure. This week, I'm going to do the ironclad measurement and see if I
what you got?
See if I've got that 36-inch waistline again.
Nice.
If the person is over, they are a body composition client. Even if they said they wanted to run a marathon or triathlon, my first thought for them is some kind of nutritional re-engineering and some kind of inefficient exercise. I do still think that exercise helps with fat loss. Some say it's only 5% of the formula, but they're ignoring the hormonal cascade, what Rob Wolf calls. So stand on 1 foot, 2 measurements, over 300 or not, waistline. Number 3 is 3 questions. Very simple question. It goes very quickly. First question is this: how many pillows does it take for you to sleep comfortably at night? If it's more than 1, you are a joint mobility client. And you know who hates this question? Oh, I was going to say women.
Oh, I got that.
I do Bikram yoga. I know. How many pillows do you need? 3. Well, I really don't need them. Well, what if you don't have them? Then I wake up, my legs hurt. You're a joint mobility client. But that's not true. I do yoga. So if you don't have the pillows, what happens? Then I really hurt in the morning. Then you're a joint mobility client. Always gets pushback. You would be surprised at the women who've been angry at me for this. And then I tell them, okay, maybe you can touch your toes with your forehead, but you're stiff here, here, and here. You know how to turn a lot of stuff off, so you just flop over, but you're doing it on locked ankles or locked wrists or locked toes or whatever it is. Boy, they hate it. And then the next 2 questions are just for another kind of assessment. I don't have time right now, but do you eat colorful vegetables every day? And of course, what does everyone say, Robert?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Question 3, do you exercise every day for half an hour every day? And the answer, absolutely. And I tell them, because I got the cred to pull this one off. Well, that's too bad, because I can't work with you, because that's all we were going to do. Have you eat colorful vegetables and have you exercise? And then the pullback. But we're also trying to find out where the person is. If someone says, no, I hate vegetables, actually, I like that, because they're honest. Mm-hmm. And then 4 quick tests, but usually it ends with number 1. So let's just review real quick. If you're over half the waistline, body comp, more than 1 pillow, joint mobility, or combination. And on the 4 physical tests, the first one is a plank. Can you hold a plank for 2 minutes? How to get everyone to fail this test? Don't say a thing for a minute, and then say halfway. That will make most people fail. Proudly at my gym, no one's ever failed that test, because we are very strong and we're fat. So, there you go. If they fail the test, they are a strength client.
Okay.
So folks listening, I turn that into a 3-ring Venn diagram, with 1 being joint mobility, the 3 being body comp, the 5s being strength. The 7s have failed all 3 tests, and the 2, the 4, and the 6 are combinations. Okay? So you can call me up and say, Dan, I'm working with a 62-year-old woman who's a 5, and I know exactly okay. So I know what we're fine on joint mobility. We're fine on body comp. She just needs to get stronger. The next 2 tests are very simple. We do and these, by the way, test me as a coach, because both of these tests should improve in about a 6-week period. Standing long jump, and then farmer walk with your body weight on a trap bar, close to your body weight. Don't lose. Yeah, I used to use farmer bars, but the math's too hard, Robert.
Yeah,
and I mean that the math's too hard. Trying to figure out farmer bars, getting the plates right, it just takes one. Whereas you can just throw on a farmer bar, throw on 45s, that's 135. Throw on 45s and 25s, that's 185, close enough. Throw on 2 45s and that's 225, that's close enough. Just use the same weight every time. So it's the plank, pass, fail. If they pass, we go on to the standing long jump, the farmer walk, and then some kind of getting up off the ground assessment. I like the Brazilian test that got famous a few years ago, but you can also just eyeball it with a couple of get up and get downs. And any way you want to do it. It doesn't have to be as orchestrated as a Turkish get up. It can just be watching someone get up and down off the ground. It is illuminating when you tell someone, I want you on the ground, and they look and go, down there? That's an indicator that, I haven't been on the floor on purpose and that's one thing, if you ever train with me, we spend a lot of time on the ground.
Yeah.
Because, at my age, the most dangerous thing in the house is the floor. So you got to spend some time, not being afraid of it. Was that okay?
Absolutely. Yeah. That was great. That was perfect. Thank you.
And so with the 1, 2, 3, 4 assessment, all we're trying to do, listeners, is I just want to know what's the biggest hit I can focus on for the first 2 weeks. So if you're not strong enough, even though you say you want to lose body fat, you're not strong enough to make the inroads to get body fat down. If you tell me you want to run a triathlon, but your waistline, you got a 49-inch waistline on a 5'10" frame, I don't know what kind of bike you're going to ride, baby. The swim will be fine. You'll float across. I'll kick your feet and skim across. But the bike's going to be a problem, and your knees are going to be gone in a week. So no matter what the person says, I'm trying to find out what you need, not what you want. Okay?
I love it. Well, I want to be respectful of your time here. We got about 15 minutes. And
all the time you want.
You're okay? Okay, cool. So I call these Danisms. These are some of the things that I've kind of got from you through all your books and things that have stuck with me. And if I kind of go through a couple of those, you just give us a quick little into it. And the first one, I don't remember what you call this, but you have a kind of a special name for a push-up hold. Can you refresh my memory on?
PUP. Push-up position plank.
PUP. I like it. And now you kind of have like a teaching process where you talk about establishing the scapula, the retraction, the engagement, the push away, the core. There's kind of a step-by-step process you get to kind of get everybody like locked into that position so they're not just drooping, away at the butt and such.
It is funny to hear you talk about it versus the way I talk about it. I tell people to squeeze the grapes in their armpits to turn into wine. I tell them Utah birth control, that's to squeeze their knees together. It's funny to hear the way you say it versus the way I say it. Scapular retraction across the midline axis, and I'm like, squeeze your butt.
Squeeze your butt. Gotcha. I love that.
You're a sophomore at BYU. Yeah.
That's true. All right. Another thing, I was watching one of your YouTube videos the other day, and people were doing like quick Q&As, and you were just kind of rattling off some answers as you went through. And someone had asked you about lunging, and you said, I'm just not a big fan of lunges. And I didn't get to hear your whole kind of explanation. Just real quick, where's the hang up with lunging for you versus the squat and the hinge as being kind of the priorities?
Well, there's about 1,000 issues. The biggest one is that most people's knees hurt when they do lunges. Mm-hmm. The patella tendonitis that shows up doing lunges is a big issue. Pavel says at his gatherings, if you can do lunges, you don't need to do lunges. If you can't do lunges, you should never do lunges. And I kind of go along in that. The next one is very simple. I have never had an athlete tell me that lunges were the key to improve performance. Gotcha. The feedback I've got from lunges is, yeah, man, I'm so tired. Well, any jackass can make you tired. Any idiot can make you sore. I don't want your patella tendons being sore. I think that's a very bad sign. Well, and then someone's going to raise a gun. Well, you need to teach lunges correctly. And I got to just do this. And I say, I know how to teach lunges. I have gone to the, it's just, if you can prove to me that it improves performance, I'll listen. One of my favorite books is, and I'm sure you're all familiar with it, Craft Training and Coordination by Franz Bosch, and it is filled with lunge variations, especially up on boxes and stuff. But of course, the second I pick it up, I can't find a single one because that's the way it works in real time.
German or something, or what is that written in?
Oh, it's German.
Is it German? Okay, all right, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Don't you read in German?
No. So included with lunging, are you referring to any split stance or just lunges? Are you a step up fan?
No. And I got to tell you, I was there when the step up came in. Remember that guy came from East Germany? I loved it. Were you around? Yeah, you would have been hit by it. The East German coach who came across snuck under the Berlin Wall with just his underwear and his trophies and his teeth and crawled. And these guys were all experts. And let me tell you what, you ever heard of Yuri Sadiq? He's
a Russian world record holder in the hammer.
So I'm sitting with him at breakfast one day. We've had dozens of meals together, and I said, years ago they said about this step up lunge thing, this high box lunge. He gets this look on his face like, okay, he's got to have a cup of coffee. Must have a cup of coffee. Never one time. No. Who made this up? I don't know, but never. No. It was hilarious to see because he got angry because he's been asked that question.
Yeah.
And the problem is once people start doing, it's like plyometrics when they came out. I read the research. The word plyometrics comes from Fred Wilt, who used to be the editor of Track Technique. He made up the word. And it came from Pat Masdorf. He was one of the last world record holders in the high jump to do the straddle, an American guy. And he invented this thing where he'd step off a bench and try to jump back up. Well, if he wouldn't have broken the world record, it would have died with him. But you're supposed to have a double body weight squat before plyos are supposed to help you. And that's that one little piece of science that people refuse to listen to.
About that.
So when I work with a high school group and Edna, the assistant coach who went online and looked up sprinting, comes up to me and says, shouldn't the kids be doing plyo? And I'll be like, Fat Wally plyometrics? If that kid steps off the box, the forces are going to go through the roof. Watching those poor little volleyball girls doing all those box jumps and their knees caving in this way every single time. Yeah. Folks, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yeah, so I'm not a fan of any of that stuff.
Okay.
And here's the thing, and this is my experience. If an exercise hurts somebody, and I was very good at really good, two great assistant coaches. Casey Sutera, he played defensive lineman for the U for a long time. Now I think he might, as we speak, have just become the head coach here of a football program in the Valley. Anthony Barbiero out in Tooele, just great assistant coaches. And both of them bought in 100% with this. When we get people hurt in the weight room, by the way, that to me, it's a fire and defense at the next level. You're working with $1 million assets and you're hurting them. Yeah. We got to sit down and talk about it, cost to benefit ratio. And that's when I got rid of box jumps because we were hurting kids. Yeah. I know. And everyone's going, yeah, but they're just losing the skin off their shin. Yeah, but it needed surgery. It needed medical intervention. But I don't want to hear your buts. Give me cost to benefit. Because if doing goblet squats gives that young girl the same benefit as doing low box squats, I've never had anyone get hurt doing a goblet squat, ever. But the benefits are here and the cost is none almost. Yeah. So when I run through, that stupid, heavy Turkish get up bullshit I'm dealing with every week. God. So Brian and I have decided to have a fake podcast where people ask the stupidest questions. I'm going to invent the stupidest questions. Here's my question. So Dan, I was doing a Turkish getup with a 40-kilo bell. My down hand slipped and the bell hit me on the face. I had 82 stitches and the doctor said I was on the brink of death. My wife left me because I've been in massive concussion. So what do I need to do to get to the 48-kilo bell? Dan, my knees are killing me constantly. I know you hate lunges, but I do them every day for an hour. How many more lunges should I do?
Yeah.
So I don't know. You can, by the way, and gentle listener, you can disagree with me on all this. Absolutely. I'm fine with it. But I do expect a phone call, a little note on my grave when you discover I'm right. Okay, just put a little bit of money in there too, in case I got to buy my way out of hell.
I love it. My Yuri Sadiq story. He was at Stanford doing a
or left.
And exactly. How did you know I was going to say that? I paid $200 for 4 hours to watch him rip through cigarettes and tell me more with the left. You must go faster. That's all I got for 2 hours the whole time. And I'm like,
Robert, I'd have done that for $100.
It was something. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And I just counted how many cigarettes he went through. It was something else.
I did his
didn't expect that
8-day camp in Ohio, and I'm not, I don't know if I learned anything. Yeah, more left. Okay, what do you? Yeah.
What is that? Yeah.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? All right. Well, that's awesome on the lunges. It's what we always talk about, like, if it hurts, don't do it. And you see so many opportunities to do the best you can with the time you have with people. Why try to keep forcing, those pieces when you can find something that's more efficient to utilize?
And again, if the listeners don't agree with me, I'm really, truly okay with that.
Understood.
But what's going to happen is if you honestly sit back every year as a coach, and I think this is so important. So as a school teacher, I did a really interesting thing. About this time every year, I wouldn't say a letter to myself in the fall, but I would sit down and write out lessons I didn't want to repeat. So for example, if you're going to give term papers, they're due within the first 3 weeks of the quarter, not the last day of this quarter. If you're going to do essays on the final, you're too stupid to be a teacher, but hold on. You better have it in a system so it's easy to grade. I would have massively long final exams with long readings and true-false questions because I was just trying to eat up the time. And then we Scantron them. I would have my point is one of the things as a coach you need to do is you need to write little letters to your future self sometimes. Okay, I am noticing this, and write it down. Sadly, my journals are just down in the kitchen there, but you got to write little notes about this is working. And then I go back into my journals. I was in the 91 journals just the other day, looking and going, my God, this is why I threw so far in 2004, because I'm setting up some honest insights then. Do you know what Lyle McDonald is, by any chance? Mm-hmm. He's a very famous nutritionist. And one day he came over to train with me here when he was living here. And I was doing this leg curl thing. And he walked in, got behind me, and goes, by God, I get to report to the world that Dan John does leg curls. Well, what was happening is I just finished my season. And at the end of every season, I write down what I thought might have been my physical weaknesses, what I thought were my technical weaknesses. And what I try to do in the first cycle is just, I hate to say I bodybuild, but I try to go actively attack whatever I consider as weaknesses. Then as a coach, I did the same thing. So I was coaching my track and field athlete, So when Paul Northway threw the high school discus 214.9 when he was under my care, weighing 215, he had 1 hour training sessions a day. That's all.
What was that?
We're a very academic school. That's all he had. He's now a professor he's very smart. Many of my athletes are professors and lawyers and doctors. But what was lucky about Paul is that I had a kid before him named Nick Gibson and Nick Alo and a few others that I was able to curve my coaching to help those guys. I was able to, okay, this is fluff. Keep more of this, less of that. More of this. And if you read like Now What, when Paul was a senior, I spent the bulk of, when I could, the bulk of my time working on his appropriate arousal level because he snatched 265. He was going to get stronger. You know, there you go. And now what?
I got him.
Yeah. So good. Enough of that. Okay, I'm sorry.
Sure. All right. So just a couple ones, just real quick little explanations. What are shark habits?
Shark habit. Rob Wolf, one bite and it's gone. If you email me, Robert, have you noticed I email you right back?
Absolutely.
If you call me, I answer the phone. This is the shirt I wear. I have 16 of them because that's all they had in my size in North America. I never think about what I'm going to wear. Almost always I have a menu. Almost always I have a menu. It's a rare time I don't eat to the menu. I have a shopping list based on the menu. So anything you can touch once, you touch it once and you let it go. And it's remarkable what a shark habit mentality can do for your life. Every time I'm gonna go to the store here in a few minutes, I will floss my teeth on the way to the store because that's what I do. When I sit down, honest to God, with a rental car, sometimes I'll find myself reaching into the well and there's nothing there. So that's what shark habits are.
Well,
and shark habits, they're not unimportant. That's the mistake you're making. They are important. The RSVP to a wedding is very important to the bride. But what shark habits are anything is that it's a binary matrix. Yes, no, choose and get rid of it.
Yeah, quick and easy and go.
Make your Revelation 3:15, your yes is yes and your no is yes. You are lukewarm and I shall spit you out. Don't be lukewarm. Say yes or don't, get the hell out.
I love it. Snapacity.
So snapacity is my attempt in one word to explain how we coach elite athletes. Snap is the hinge. And the idea is that, you want a lot of snaps. So snap is the hinge, the explosive whack, the snatch, and it combined with work capacity. So snapacity. That's the ability to hit somebody hard over and over and over again. It's a throw at a Highland Games, 9 times 3, throw 40 to 50 hard throws in one day and still have some room in the tank for a caber contest at the end.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anaconda strength.
Anaconda strength. The 64 Olympic champion in the hammer, when he was talking about the needs for strength in the hammer throw, he said that the body is like an inner tube and you need internal pressure. Okay? Internal pressure in inner tube is great, but it didn't have the concept I wanted. Here's another one. So this is Tarzan. So hit your belly. Tarzan belly. It's inner Tarzan belly. Anaconda strength is that ability to squeeze your body to force you into a stone position, like McGill would say.
Gotcha. Yeah, you were referencing like a bear hug carry, and talking about how you tighten into that, you pull everything into it, you wrap your anaconda strength into that implement to your carry.
Well, and as a hammer thrower, you should have a real clear idea of what I'm talking about. Yeah. In fact, I've said this many times. As proud as I am of the Goblet Squad, if I could do it all again, I would have had the athletes do bear hug carry. I'd blow a whistle. They would all drop and they would squat, bear hug carry, squat, because the bear hug carry squat, if the load is going down your sternum, your ab line, your zipper there, and you squat, you almost naturally squat. It's hard not to naturally squat perfectly.
Gotcha.
And remember, when you stop people from thinking in the squat, they squat perfectly.
Not overanalyzing then at that point, they're just kind of counting the implement. Yep.
When I showed Dave Draper my squatting stuff, so Dave Draper, Mr. Universe, Beverly Hillbillies, Monkeys, he said to me, he goes, I wish this isn't how I squatted. I wish I had known this first, because it was pain-free squatting for Mr. Universe, man. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
When I was at Perform Better, I think 2 years ago, you were here in San Francisco with Martin Rooney and Greg.
Excuse me, hold on.
Sure.
Readers, listeners, is very important. We were in South San Francisco.
True. That's true.
The industrial city.
That's right.
Population 48,850. It's my hometown.
Yeah, that's where we were. And I had asked you a question. I said I recently had hip replacements. I had both my hips replaced, and then I had a dislocation. I had to redo the left one entirely. So I've had 3. And I said, what are some suggestions you would give me on keeping my hips and my body healthy moving forward as a younger man now having replacements? And your answer was develop and continue to grow your grip strength, work on your hip mobility, and find ways to comfortably produce power. And so those were kind of 3 things that I wanted to kind of come back, even though they all have different focuses of each one. Like those were your tips to success, for me to come forward. And I could definitely give my examples of all that, but I'd love to hear just kind of your feedback on those 3.
Well, since that time, I've had the opportunity, because I was born with a genetic condition called pistol grip hips, lucky me. And according to my doctor, I am the poster boy for the condition. He said I could easily teach a class with your hips. And so, well, good for you. Nice. One of the things I noticed this time, that using the prowler was so much better than I thought. Now, I did some banded work and some sled pulls last time, but the only thing I would add to that list is prowler. And the reason prowlers, I'm starting to think of as horizontal squats. That's an interesting thing. So climbing is vertical crawling, and crawling is horizontal crawling, and squatting is this, and prowlers are this. Prowlers would be the first.
Kind of like a tweener.
I said hip mobility. It's interesting. I wish I could talk to Dan John that day.
Well, you were introduced in the tactical frog, and that was a component for us, was to kind of get down and go through those rocking actions to help me kind of free up and develop some of that ability, and then that mobility would help me transfer to my swing or my glute bridge or something.
Okay, good. So okay, and the nice thing is we're using Tim Anderson's original strength ideas, or what Larry calls pendiculations. And I think one of the problems when you are coming off, especially a hip or a knee, is people wait until they've ruined their gait to get those things fixed. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I asked my friends when we ruck, am I limping? Not long ago, we were doing something, and my daughter Lindsay said, "Why are you limping?" And I went, "Oh, because I'm tired and I regressed to a pattern." And she goes, "Well, you just stopped limping." I go, "Yeah, I just had to." So when you have an injury, I always tell this to people with hip and knee injuries, and it might be true for ankles and feet, though I don't know. I know for sure, is there's this bicycle this guy has that if you turn the handles this way, it goes the opposite way. He's engineered a bicycle to not work correctly. And he gives you like $100 if you can bike, I think it's like 10 feet without falling over. Because when you ride a bicycle, there's this wonderful tuning that you have with the balancing here. Once you learn how to ride the bicycle that goes the wrong way, if you go back to a normal bicycle, you don't remember how to ride it until you have it. And literally people say, "Oh, I remember now."
Just like that.
With hips and knees, when someone is no longer in pain, they're no longer, what do you guys, ambulatory? No, they're not in a walker. They're not on crutches. They're not on a cane. They've been cleared. One of the things we have to let them do is literally learn how to walk again. So, one of the things, now that's okay. So prowlers, I think, are wonderful for that because it's a loaded walk. And the second you put your hands here, anytime you involve your hands and eyes, the brain is so busy, it forgets all the other stuff, which is what you want the brain to get the hell out of things. How to beat your opponent in the discus. You walk up right before he throws and say, Do you breathe in or out as you start the throw? Guy will be dead. You will not be able to make that throw. The brain will start working.
I love it.
So one of the things that I've been working on, I think there's some value of doing heavy hands, like with lighter weights, but trying to walk a line. So try to go, so there's a line, I'm trying to go left foot, right foot,
You
left
walk
foot,
plank kind of, yep.
walk a line. And the reason I think that's important, it gets us back to that concept of the spring that Stu McGill talks about with the spine. But when you hurt a hip or knee, because you've been defending it from pain for so long, you no longer spring your walk. So, and if you miss this step and go into jogging, you're probably, what is it, 2,600 pounds per footfall when you jog or something like that. But it's 2,600 pounds on your left foot, the good leg, and your right leg is splaying off, and all that energy, God only knows where it's going. So that's why I think it's important to walk the line, push the prowler, get your brain away from the area, try to get back a squat like you did the tactical frog, the 6-point rock, anything Tim says.
Yeah,
that's where I'd be at.
And then working up into the swing action, that's been a great piece for me as well. I've never been a huge fan of taking the bell all the way overhead. It's just a little bit too much, with coming back down with that eccentric, having to so I just work the low. I think you introduced to me like a low swing action where you kind of take the follow through phase out of it, and it's just accelerate, prepare, and you kind of work that low angle and work your eccentrics. And that's just been a huge piece for me. Definitely something I've implemented with my clients quite a bit too. That's worked well for us.
We have an interesting drill my daughter came up with. It's on my Instagram account, Coach Dan John, from a couple days ago.
Just the other day, where the line on the wall.
Line on the wall.
Yeah, that was very good.
The feedback I've gotten, it's like, oh, is that what Bob's, trying to tell me? That's what Eddie or Edna keeps telling me. So they couldn't see it. But once I do the squat where my butt goes down versus back, and you'll notice when I shove my butt back, my ass is belt line. My butt stays at belt line basically. And that's, and if you can't do that, don't swing. Don't swing.
Not ready to swing. Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's other drills. I mean, I think the hip thrust is marvelous.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I can't tell you how great this was for me. I had an absolute blast. I do see a couple of questions I want to go up, but
that's what time.
Would you talk about Dan John University a little bit, and then maybe just some of your other books? And I know 40 Years with the Whistle is the new one that just came out, but you've got Never Let Go, you've got Intervention, Mass Made Simple, Can You Go, Now What, your philosophies, your DVDs, you got all kinds of great stuff. So where can people get more about you and tell us about the new website about?
Well, danjohn.net is my library. Just go in. If you decide to print everything out, good luck. It's going to be about 3,000 pages of stuff. I've got articles from the Olympic shot put champion, wanted to share some information. Here you go. We had a world record holder in the triple jump say, okay, here's what I'm doing. The first report about how the Chinese Olympic team was, they're all in there. But Dan John University, my buddy Brian Gwaltry, he's not only a tech wizard, but he really understands the way I think. Mm-hmm. So it used to be in the past when I'd help somebody online that we would have 50 emails. And, Dan, give me a program for this. And I'd send him a program. Well, I don't have an Olympic bar. Oh, okay. Well, I send another program. I don't have a kettlebell. So the first question when you go to the workout generator is, what equipment do you have? So you press the buttons about what equipment you have. How many days a week do you want to work out? 1 to 7. How many, half an hour workout? Do you want it to get harder and harder or stay the same? And then you press this button and a workout shows up. And then here's the other thing. You go to the squat and it says air squat, but you're more advanced than that. So you decide to do, you can click it up to a more and more advanced squat. Like my friend Ann, she does the jumping goblet squats because all she has is a kettlebell at home during this lock in place, shelter in place. And it's kind of fun to watch her do basically the same workout as some of the other people I know, but she's doing the jumping goblet squat, and this person's doing the TRX, the hanging squat with almost no load. And so it is, you are literally inside my brain. We have 15 or 16 basically books in the download area. Pat Flynn has 2. Tim Anderson has his Pressing Reset. I've got 3 new things on easy strength. I think it's about 100 essays that I've written, and they're all unique to the site. A great forum, really quality people. I mean, really quality people. And then, and Brian is so good. If you have an idea, that afternoon it comes out. That afternoon, it is just it. And here's the nice thing: Brian and I are not. If anyone thinks I'm in this for the money, you certainly don't understand that. Me. So during the coronavirus, right now we can't give it away for free, sadly, but it's $29 for 3 months. So I don't know, and just type in Corona, and then you get the special discount. And as long as we have this going on, we're going to keep that discount. So originally said 3 months. Now we're going to go to 4, 5, 6, whatever years, and then we're going to stick at that price as long as we can. If we have to raise it because of, so I have to hire people to do things for me, so I have to pay them. So that's where that money's going, for the people who do like the transcribing and some of the editing and stuff. And I work with people in the deaf community. I had a brother go to Nam and lose his hearing. So I've been kind of close to the hearing impaired my whole life. So it's really important for me to have, as much as we can, things transcribed, closed captioned, as much as we can. And as I said to one of my friends, Ann, who's deaf, I said, you just got to understand that it's just so hard. And she was so appreciative of the fact that I try, I at least try. Absolutely. And because not many people even try. So we're doing our best. I'm very proud of it. Site-wise, it's beautiful. It runs well.
It is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, you're inside my brain.
Your forum there of everything that you have, I don't know, 10 or 12 books, if not more, that you have out there. And then your Wandering Weights, you what, 4 years or 5 years into that now? How long is that?
Isn't that funny? Never missed. Yeah. The hardest one I ever did, last June, I was so sick. In fact, I brought the coronavirus to the world. I was working with the Royal Army and the Royal Marine Corps and some other things there in England, getting ready to teach my students at St. Mary's. And I was so ill. And then my brother died, and I had to come home. I was so sick. And the week my brother died, I did Wandering Weights, and I got it out. The next week, my daughter got married. I was father of the bride. I was the eulogy for my brother and father of the bride in a 7-day period.
Oh man!
And I got the thing out both weeks, and that's the kind of thing my family does. My family, my mom and dad. It's funny with my college students. Sometimes I'll say I couldn't get the assignment done. My aunt died, and I'll be like, and I always write back. The day I defended my master's thesis, that morning my mom died, and she would expect me to get the job done, because that's kind of who we are as a family. We're kind of a little bit old school. Saying Dan John is old school. Sir, what's the definition of redundant?
Well, what an emotional swing from your brother to your daughter.
Oh, it was brutal.
7 days with travel and not feeling well.
Yeah.
Well, between your books, your presentations you do, Perform Better, all your private clinics that you do as well, your YouTube page, which is fantastic. You're putting out stuff almost every day now, if not a couple of times a day. Yeah. I mean, I absolutely love it. I know so many of our readers, our Instagram followers and Facebook followers too. We're so excited to have you on, and I just can't thank you enough, Dan. This is fantastic, man.
Did you want to go real quick and answer those few questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do that. So one question here from Matt said, which book do you define more about your 5 fundamental movements in your assessment? It's in quite a few of them, but which one spends more?
The only thing I'd say with this, Matt, is that intervention is when I walk you through it. Intervention is when I take you through the whole system. Now, there's been some changes, and so for more clarity, I would say just go to 40 Years with the Whistle, or to save yourself money, a cheap son of a, just go to Dan John University, and then I think the article Snapacity kind of goes through it. I think on the site it has the whole new template, and it goes through. And Matt, if that's not good enough, you just email me and we'll figure out something from there. Okay.
Good man. Steve is on here. Steve thanked us multiple times on here for having you on. He said he saw you perform better in 2014 in Providence. Huge influence. Encouraged me to start my business after listening to you, Alan, and Mike all talk. You said you started thinking mass made easy. And light, are you supposed to leave gas in the tank like you do with Mass Made Easy, or how many training days per week would you suggest? He says.
You're referring to the he's talking about a program I did for
Mass Made Easy Light.
Yeah, Mass Made Light, LITE.
Okay.
That was a thing I wrote for T Nation. Mm-hmm. There's some good stuff in that thing. Basically, if it's the one I'm thinking of, Steve, it's the 3-day-a-week workout. You should just, Steve, email me, dan@danjohn.net. Show me what you're talking about, and I'll clarify it back. Mm-hmm. If it's the one I'm thinking about, I hate to say it's a body part workout, Robert, because it is a body part workout. But like if Monday's, let's say Monday's the bench day, you still do all the basic human movements that same day anyway. Wednesday is the squat day, you still do all the basic human movements, but you do one set kind of because most people don't get enough reps. That's why they're not getting stronger. They need more reps.
Gotcha. Steve also put on there that he's got a bag of flossers in his car since he saw you in 2014.
There you go.
I mentioned that. And then he said, sit to raise from the floor unassisted. Oh, that you had mentioned a predictor of cause of mortality and the ability to sit and rise from the floor unassisted.
It's called the sit and rise. Type in Google the sit and rise test, or it's and rise. It's Brazilian. It's in my book. Can you go in great depth? But just type in sit and rise test, and you'll get the tip. You'll get the picture that it's a young lady with dark hair. And she's going down to the ground, crossing her legs. That's the predictor, yeah. You can also, when you get to the YouTube video of it, it's a 45-minute presentation. But if you can't figure out how to do it within about 2 minutes, maybe you shouldn't be working with any people. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, I remember you talking about this, and you took us through kind of like a drill, a series of stuff you could do where
you back up
down, with both hands, and then you do it with one hand, and you have one hand on your knee and one hand on your back, and it was just training different pieces like that, as different as you could make it, kind of.
And as people get tired, the law of exhaustion shows up. The more tired you get, the tireder you get, the more and more fluid you become getting up and down off the ground.
Gotcha.
You cut out all the extra nonsense. People begin to flow. So once you get to about the 25th rep of getting up and down off the ground, people simplify, and that's what we're looking for.
That's right.
So, and by the way, there's your perfect lunge. Rep number 30 is when people lunge correctly.
They're not thinking anymore, and their fatigue is.
And they're stacking the joints. They're stacking the joints up instead of wobble, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
It takes less energy. Yeah.
Awesome. Dan, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. You're fantastic, man. And thank you for everything that you put together. I'm such a fan. I know so many people are, and I love seeing you live. This is awesome getting to do this. This is a small hero worship moment for me to be able to get to chat with you like this and share with people. So I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing time with us.
Appreciate it. And listeners, I'm here to help. Just let me know how, okay?
You're the man. Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. We appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow with Evan Osar. Ask Robert on Wednesday, and then Christian Thompson on Thursday wraps up the month. And you'll be able to see all the recordings and all that on our YouTube page. So we appreciate you all. One more thank you to Dan. You're the best. And
do it again.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.